So this is a follow-up video to the last video I posted about being high in neuroticism, low in conscientiousness, and the ways to counteract or cope with that personality result, I guess. A lot of people ended up commenting on that video basically saying, hey, I'm so high in neuroticism that my life is a living hell. And it was mostly just them kind of complaining about how hard their life is. So, and then a lot of people ask me, how high are you in neuroticism? Like, I'm more neurotic than you are, so my life is more difficult than yours. But I was in the 70th percentile, I believe, so I don't know if that's certainly not, a zero in conscientiousness, but I'm a relatively neurotic dude, despite the fact that it doesn't always show in how I communicate because I hide it well. But what I would say is that there are specific things that I've noticed help me to counteract whatever my predisposition to being a bit neurotic and a bit high in negative emotion, essentially how that affects me. And one is making sure that I strategize. So Jordan Peterson talks a bit about this, and the idea is to make your schedule. It's a great idea. It works wonders for me because I've noticed that because of just how my brain works, I think I'm on the borderline of ADD. I'm not sure if I actually have it. But the way that my brain works is I'm really good with starting things and having ideas, but I'm horrendous at actually following through with the ideas that I start. And that's probably because I'm low in conscientiousness, which I'm really working on. But when you strategize for your weaknesses, it becomes a bit easier to mitigate the negative effects of your natural propensity toward seeking newness or novelty and not being able to stay in the discomfort or the non-excitement of seeing a project through to the end. So I would really recommend to my highly neurotic, low conscientiousness brethren out there to, yes, make a schedule, but be hyper conscious of ways that you trip yourself up, of what shitty days look like for you. Kind of categorize those, turn that into a pattern for yourself. So you could say, oh, well, I've noticed that every time I feel shitty, I overthink and I eat a lot of pizza, and that leads to me eating pizza the next day, and then I'm in this spiral of shit. If you can recognize those things as they are happening, then because you understand, you now have new choice. So it's kind of a fun game to just be like, I don't know, to kind of be a scientist of yourself. And that's the other thing that helps, is that, remembering that there isn't an objective reason that we're here. I mean, if you're a particularly religious person, then maybe there is something that you believe, but I fundamentally believe that it's all a bit absurd that we're in space and we're kind of spinning around and nobody really knows why. And, we get up and we go to work and we dress in our suits and we put on a mask much of the time and maybe sublimate our true selves in service of whatever it is that our job is. And we do it because that's what we're supposed to do to survive. But a lot of times I'll just notice how ridiculous everything is. And being able to play with that, being able to laugh at the fact that, yeah, I'm low in conscientiousness. These are the cards that I was dealt. It's kind of hilarious. I didn't have a say in it. But that doesn't mean that I am, a victim or that there's not anything I can do with it. That's a cop-out. That's a victim way of thinking about it. And Jordan Peterson hasn't talked a whole lot about the benefits of non-conscientiousness, and certainly I'm sure there isn't a whole lot of awesome benefits, at least if you're trying to build something over time. But I really do believe that there's no way that people are born that are just bad. Like, your brain, if it's particularly high in openness, there's going to be liabilities to that. If you're particularly high in conscientiousness, then you might not be able to dance. Like, there's a lot of drawbacks and beauty to how we're all formed. And sometimes the way that we're formed is very applicable to our age group. Like, if you're really low in neuroticism and high in conscientiousness, you probably weren't particularly popular in high school. Unless you were really high in openness, I assume. But But maybe as you got older, it was great because you were a developer, and that's really worked out for you if you're a programmer these days. Anyways, all I'm saying is that you're not a victim of your personality type. You're not, if you're prone to high negative emotion, that's okay. That's not really something that is your fault, but that absolutely is something that is your responsibility. And you do get to deal with that. And there can be utility to it if you can give it meaning and purpose in some way. So the worst thing that you can possibly do is allow yourself to basically divulge or disintegrate into woe is me, I'm a victim, and my personality is now an oppressor of me, and there's nothing I can do about it. Like, it's a weak way to live life in general, period, but it's also just extremely pointless. It's not even fundamentally correct, and that's what I keep having people say to me, like, oh, everything is shitty in my life. I'm certain that they probably do have difficulties in their life, but I also know a lot of people that are like working at Google that seem to have the perfect life, that are, addicted to a drug or going through a terrible divorce, or whose kid doesn't like them, or who had to just put their dog to sleep. Like, we're all suffering in different grades, and the narrative of our life can be variant insofar as, like, yeah, you might have suffered for a longer period of time and you have worse ingrained beliefs, but you can get better at anything you do. And your process in getting better, even if it's a little bit, will set others free if you share it and if you really kind of decide that it's your thing to go into. So that's a little follow-up video to my other video about Jordan Peterson and about my own struggle with low conscientiousness, high neuroticism. All right, see ya.